What I encourage you to do is find the problem solutions, the people who are ready to find solutions to problems and to find how to fix it or change it or revolutionize it, and not just insist on complaining the whole time. Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day because today we are talking about the relationships in your life. And I'm going to start us off with this quote by Tony Robbins. He says, "The quality of a person's life is most often a direct reflection of the expectations of their peer group." Fire. So critical, so important to recognize and remember. Today we're talking about who do you surround yourself with? And are these people the people who are lifting you up to have and achieve your greatest potential? Or are these the people that are sucking you down and bringing you down and limiting you? Either intentionally or unintentionally. The power of the people you spend most of your time with is so incredibly effective in terms of achieving greater goals for yourself. So that's what we're talking about today. I'm going to start out here with a story for you. There was a time in my life where I was finding myself with a lot of outer success, but a lot of inner turmoil. And what I realized was I was spending time with many high-achieving, successful people who just had very negative takes on the world. And it was also a time when in society there was a lot going on. So I was paying attention to a lot of news reports and negativity and getting really sucked into it. And what I saw was the people I was surrounding myself with, the events I was surrounding myself with, where I was putting my attention was literally teaching me and ingraining in me negativity. And what I started to do was actually find time to eke out of my own schedule to limit the time that I was giving to those negative people in my life. Not easy. Not easy at all. I had to say goodbye to quite a few relationships, and it was very, very uncomfortable. I think one of the things we'll talk about today is just how we tell ourselves stories about not burning bridges and how some relationships we hang on to because we think we should. And that's what I was doing to myself as well. I was just perpetuating relationships because I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings. In the meantime, these same relationships were draining me. So how do we do this? How do we step outside of that old routine and feeling obligated and responsible to maintain relationships that are actually hurting us? And sometimes those are the people we're related to. Those are really hard ones, or those are relationships that we've nurtured for decades. She's been my best friend for 30 years, we tell ourselves. I can't break this off now. But there is a way to reframe it, especially if we have awareness around the fact that it is not feeding us and our own happiness. So let's dive right in today. I'm actually going to share with you 8 steps, 8 tips and tools on how to feed yourself with the environment that you're putting yourself in. How to make sure that those 5 people that you surround yourself with, remember that Jim Rohn quote about you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Well, that is true. How do we give ourselves permission to reestablish those positive relationships? So step number 1, understanding that proximity is power. Literally, who are you closest to? Who are you spending every day with? How can you make more empowering choices? It's so interesting. We keep coming back to the power of choice. And it doesn't matter where you are in your life. It doesn't matter who you're surrounded by. You always get to choose. Sometimes those choices come with consequences. Absolutely. Maybe it has some big impact on your life. But allowing yourself permission to put value on your happiness and your greater potential, your unique potential to find enormous greatness and happiness in this life. We only get one life, guys. This is it. This is our opportunity. So who are you going to keep closest to you? And I'd say proximity and time. Who are you spending the most time with? Number 2, let go of negative relationships. Oh, that's so hard to do. Even if you've identified your brother-in-law as being the one that's so negative and you tell yourself, you know what, I can't, he's family, I can't let him go. It is so important to let him go. If you have a really hard time establishing a boundary for yourself and creating a positive bubble around this one source of negativity, you have got to let him go. In business, 100%, if you have naysayers and friends that are questioning your ability, especially in entrepreneurship and leadership, let them go. Or at the very least, don't talk about business when you're around them. Maybe that's one way to let go of the negativity, is to just not engage in conversations with that person, keep it very neutral, but be very clear that you are not going to let them in on that precious part of who you are. Because our businesses in this entrepreneurial venture, to all my high-achieving entrepreneurs out there, is a part of who you are. So when somebody is attacking your potential or attacking your dreams, they are literally committing an act of violence against you, because that is who you are. Our businesses are our babies. 100%, they're a part of our dreams and our desires. And you do not deserve that punishment from outside sources. You deserve empowerment and support and encouragement and feeding you with support and encouragement, not depleting you of it. So letting go of those negative relationships is number 2. And also acknowledging that it's uncomfortable and letting go of stories that they're your closest, oldest friend. If they're not supportive, let them go. Number 3, surround yourself with people who do elevate you. This is becoming more and more comfortable in our society because we're able to find those resources online to a greater degree. And there are so many opportunities in terms of mastermind groups or study clubs where we can really surround ourselves with those people who make us feel good about ourselves. Whether it's somebody at the gym or a coach or a mentor or even a good friend who just really lifts you up and lights you up. Paying attention to your emotions is very important with this step. How do you feel? So when you've been hanging out with a friend or you've been hanging out with a group of friends and you leave, that's a great question to ask yourself. How do I feel? And if you feel empowered and supported and like you can take on the world, spend more time with those people. Make sure you feed your soul in that regard. And if you don't let fear ruin your life. Don't let the fear of losing a relationship, don't let a fear of letting go of somebody ruin that precious part of who you are if it's bringing you down. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. Number 4, surround yourself with people who are already successful in the arena that you want to be successful in. So if you want to be an amazing CrossFit athlete, you're going to surround yourself with other CrossFit athletes. Why? Because habits are infectious. When you surround yourself with people who have the success that you are so excited to find, you learn a lot from them, and those habits start washing off on you. You start to learn what books they're reading, who they're following online, what courses they took, their perspective when things go wrong? How do they handle when something falls apart? You start learning those strengths and tools just by being around them. Even if you can't be with them in person, following them and admiring and reading their books is a great opportunity as well. That's one of the ways that I started with my personal development. When I realized I needed to find joy and happiness and I was letting go of negative people, I started looking for those positive people and learning how they did it. Another way that I used this in my life was, and I think I've talked about this many times in the podcast, was when my goal was to stop drinking alcohol. It was really difficult for me because most of my friends, in fact, every single one of my friends was used to drinking alcohol. And when I decided it was time for me to terminate that relationship with alcohol, and I have talked about this openly on the podcast, when I realized that I had an addiction to it, and I noticed that it was robbing me of my happiness, robbing me of my attention to my family. This was an important step for me. What I was hearing amongst my peer group was, oh, don't be unreasonable, Tarryn. You should drink every now and then, or just drink on the weekends. There was not a lot of support for my goal of not drinking at all. And I give them a lot of compassion because it might have been illuminating some discomfort or stories in their hearts. And maybe this was helping them feel better about themselves, or maybe they just didn't understand my perspective. But I really needed to distance myself from those friends for a while. So what I did was I started researching people who have stopped drinking. I started looking at people online, finding people who don't drink alcohol anymore and learning from them what their habit patterns were. I started researching interviews on podcasts to see how did they handle hanging around other people who were comfortable drinking alcohol and didn't have problems drinking alcohol. It was only when I was able to really immerse myself with other people who could support those habits, who had achieved that level of success in that arena, that I was able to gain the strength and habit patterns that I could then go back into my old friend group and come to that place from a position of power and a position of strength within myself. Number 5, surround yourself with people who are slightly outside your comfort zone. So in other words, if you know you really want to achieve something phenomenal in your life, then put yourself in the world where people have done that and then some. People who are really stretching just a little bit more than you feel comfortable with. This challenges us. This gives us more incentive to be even greater than we are today. So arenas where you can do that is definitely study clubs and masterminds. Those are exceptional places to do that online. Also, once again, books and podcasts, and definitely mentors and coaches. If you're ever looking to find something exceptional, then you're going to find a coach or a mentor that maybe had gone through that journey themselves and can really commiserate and understand the progress that it takes and the dedication and commitment it takes, but also recognizing that there's room for even greater growth. Establish a nice long-term relationship with that person and check in every now and then. Find that person who makes you feel a little bit like you need to stretch a little bit further just to reach that level of success that you're seeking. Because remember, attitudes are contagious, habits are contagious, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. That's really difficult. Find out how someone else did it, and maybe that will work for you and maybe it won't. You always have to check in what's most important to you and the habit patterns that will work in your lifestyle. And nobody's exactly the same as you. Maybe you have 3 kids and somebody else has no kids, but there's always room to stretch. So putting yourself in that place where people push you to be a little bit outside your comfort zone and take you to that next level. This weekend, I welcomed a good friend and mentor of mine, Kevin Palmieri from Next Level University. He came to my podcast studio and next level this podcast studio. I'm sure you can tell from the video, if you're checking this out on YouTube right now, that I've really stepped up a notch in the podcast game, thanks to Kevin Palmieri. But he's a great example of this. I met Kevin when I went out to a conference called Influencer Conference in San Diego in 2019. And that was my first step into foraying into a place where people were definitely living the levels of success that I was hoping to achieve. I was putting myself in a very uncomfortable place because here I was, a complete novice in the podcasting influencer game, and I was giving myself an opportunity to surround myself with people who really were living the next level of success. And that's when I met Kevin. It's a perfect example of someone I jumped on to his bandwagon immediately in terms of following him online. Next thing, I was joining a mastermind that he was leading, and so progressed my habit patterns. I was beginning to learn from him what he did to make it work and his attitudes, and also learning what happens when things go wrong. Stretching constantly. And so this weekend is a perfect example of it. I love entertaining this relationship with Kevin. Even though he's much younger than I am, he doesn't have kids. Our lives are so different, but he gets me to push myself just a little bit more so that I'm always doing better for my coaching clients. I'm always doing better for my podcast interviews. Just that little bit. That is why I value that relationship so much. So number 6 is find problem solvers, not problem creators or problem complainers. It's very easy to find a group of people who are willing to just complain about what is wrong. What I encourage you to do is find the problem solutions, the people who are ready to find solutions to problems and to find how to fix it or change it or revolutionize it, and not just insist on complaining the whole time. Those are the leaders you want to follow. Those are the leaders you want to be in the same room as. Those are the leaders you want to co-create with and collaborate with. Who is looking for the answers and the solutions and not just sitting in a room complaining. It doesn't mean these people don't notice what's going on. It doesn't mean they're unaware to the problems in society and in the system and in the social networks. It just means that they're looking for opportunities to improve, to move that needle forward so that we can constantly be growing. Those are the people you want to be in touch with. Number 7, find people who help you tap into your full potential and bring out the best in you. Once again, we mentioned before how important it is to look at how do you feel when you're around them. When you spend time with that person, is that person lifting you up, feeling great about yourself? Or do you feel a little bit defeated and unimportant, and not losing your value when you spend more time around them? That is the key. So who is telling you that you should keep going, keep striving? And then number 8 is people who give you genuine feedback. That's a huge one for me. You might find people who are willing to tell you you're great at every turn. That might be very easy for you to find. But are you able to find the people who are brave enough to tell you what you need to hear with kindness and compassion? That friend who'll tell you you've got a booger in your nose. Are you able to find those mentors and guides and colleagues who are willing to share with you the tough news and have enough love and compassion and faith and trust that they have your greater potential in their hearts, that they're really helping you be your very best, not trying to tear you down? We all get what we tolerate in ourselves and in other people. That's another Tony Robbins quote that I absolutely love. We get what we tolerate. Our lives show us evidence of what we tolerate in ourselves in our old habit patterns, in our old negative thinking. We get what we tolerate in ourselves, and we get what we tolerate in the people we surround ourselves with. What are you tolerating? What have you tolerated for decades in terms of the people around you? Where have you noticed that the people around you, perhaps unintentionally, have been stripping you of your ability to be your very best? And is it time to make that change? I believe in you, my friend. I believe in your greater potential. I believe that your desires are pointing you in the direction of your destiny and of your purpose, your greater purpose here. Now, all you need to do is find those other supporters and cheerleaders around you who can help lift you up and give you that opportunity to see your greater dreams come true. I am sending you so much love, so much support. Know that you always can find that here. And remember, when you feel good, now that's when you can do good. Bye-bye.